In the English system, the unit of length is a foot, the unit of volume is a gallon, and the unit of mass is a pound. And they have no connection with each other whatsoever. But in the metric system, if you consider the unit of length and the volume and the mass, they're all connected. So the big question is, what is the unit of length and unit of volume and the mass in the metric system, and how exactly are they connected? That's what we want to find out in this video. So let's begin. Now, before we do that, let's quickly recap how the metric system works. So for example, if you take the length, then its unit, the base unit we call it, is the meter. Now, a meter might be great for measuring the height of a tree or maybe the length of a bus, but it might not be very useful when you're dealing with something extremely tiny, like say the width of a button. Well, in that case, we create smaller units by dividing the base unit by the powers of 10. And then if you want to measure something much larger, like say the distance between cities, again, meter may be inconvenient. So now we create bigger units, larger units, by multiplying the base unit with the powers of 10. For example, consider the kilometer, which is a big unit of length. We get that by multiplying the base unit by 1,000. Similarly, consider millimeter, which is a very tiny unit of length. We get that unit by dividing our base unit by 1,000. The key idea is by using powers of 10 to create new units, it's much easier to convert from one unit to another. Okay, end of recap. So now let's think about volume. The English system has several units of volume. We have an ounce, we have a pint, a quart, a gallon, peck, bushels, and many more. And I don't even know how to convert from one to another, okay? But in the metric system, the unit of volume is a liter. You probably heard of liter, right? We represent the liter with a capital L. Now you can use a small L, but if you use a small L like this, it looks like 1. So whenever we do use a small L, we use, curved letters, but it's just better to use capital letters, okay? But the big question now is, what exactly is a liter and how is it connected to the meter? Well, here's how we define a liter. We take a length of exactly 10 centimeters and we just cube it, meaning we create a box that has the length, width, and the height of exactly 10 centimeters. The volume of this box is defined as a liter. So this is how we get liters from centimeters, which is basically a unit of length in the metric system. Now, liters are great when you're measuring the amount of water or juice in a bottle, for example. But what if we are considering the volume of something extremely tiny, like drops of water? Or maybe something extremely big, like large bodies of water? What do we do then? Liters are inconvenient. But we already know what to do. We can multiply and divide our base unit by the powers of 10 to create bigger and smaller units. For example, we have the liter, right? Now, if you want to create a bigger unit, we'll just multiply the liter with some power of 10, say 1,000. And since 1,000 is a kilo, we have now created kiloliters. Amazing, right? And similarly, if you want to create a smaller unit of volume, for example, divide this by some power of 10. Say divide it by 1,000. We divide something by 1,000. 1,000 is a milli, so we have created the milliliters. And of course, you can create other units as well. But to be honest, we usually use liters and milliliters and don't use these other ones. But the point is, you can create bigger and smaller units, and boom, there we have it. Unit of volume constructed from the unit of length. Amazing, isn't it? And that brings us to mass. How do we connect mass to the liter in the metric system? Here's how. You take a liter of water, because water is found everywhere, and we say that whatever is the mass of 1 liter of water, that itself is our unit of mass. That's going to be our base unit for mass, okay? And we call this unit the kilogram. So what's a kilogram? Well, a kilogram is the mass of 1 liter of water. Now, a quick question we might have is, why is the base unit of mass a kilogram? Why does it have a prefix? A kilo stands for 1,000, right? So why does the base unit become 1,000 gram? And why didn't we just define this as a gram? Well, turns out it's got something to do with the history. The metric system went through several changes after it was introduced. And in the end, it just seemed like the kilogram was a more useful base unit than the smaller gram. But what's important for us is that we're going to have a pretty cool relationship between the length, volume, and mass now, okay? Let's see how. If I ask you to calculate the volume of this cube, how do you calculate it? Well, you calculate it as length into breadth into height. So it'll be 10 centimeters times 10 centimeters times 10 centimeters, right? And we know that this, by definition, is a liter. That's the volume. And we now know that the mass of 1 liter of water is, by definition, a kilogram. kg stands for kilogram, okay? So now if we simplify this, 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So you get 1,000 cm cubed. That should equal, a liter is basically 1,000 milliliters, right? And that's the same thing as we saw, a kilo is 1,000. So that's the same thing as 1,000 grams of water. So look at what we find. If we divide the whole thing by 1,000, we find that 1 cm cube of water, which is the same thing as 1 ml of water, has a mass of 1 gram. This is the beautiful connection between the three. A centimeter cube of water, which is basically an ml of water, has a mass of 1 gram. Now, although gram is the core unit which ends up getting all the prefixes, turns out that kilogram is the standard base unit of mass because it's just more useful. And that's why other units in physics, like the Newton or the joule, they're all calibrated for kilograms and not grams. But that's just a side note. What's important for us now is, just like before, we can build bigger or smaller units of mass by multiplying or dividing this with the powers of 10. So long story short, in the metric system, the whole idea is we start with the base unit, and then if you want to create smaller or bigger units, you just multiply or divide or multiply with the powers of 10. The unit of length is a meter. From that, we can derive the unit of volume, which is a liter. From that, we can derive the unit of mass, which is a kilogram, or you can think of it as gram as well, okay? And how are they all connected? Well, if you take a centimeter cube, you get the unit of volume, which is a milliliter. And if you take a milliliter of water, you get the unit of mass, which is a gram. Amazing, right?